This magnificent specimen of a flathead is going to provide valuable scientific information for the New South Wales Department of Primary Industries. They've been looking to age these bigger fish to find out the age and size structure of the flathead population. They do this by removing the otoliths from the inside the head, and then they're a bit like tree rings. You section the otolith, you count up the rings, and you can work out how many years old this fish is. So not only is this going to provide a magnificent feed, it's also going to yield some very valuable scientific information. But right now what we're going to do is fillet this flathead and show you the easy way to get all the bones out and have a beautiful meal of flathead. Alright, we're going to fillet this beautiful flathead now. I've just taken the liberty of gutting it. And here you can see, I'll hold it up for you, this bloodline on the thing. This is actually the fish's kidneys. So this is a good thing to remove. A simple matter to just stick your fingers underneath. Lift it up like so, and there you go, kidneys removed. You'll see I've got the hose here. Alright, you'll see I've got the hose here. With the hose, you can put fresh water on a fish right up until the moment that you expose the flesh. Once you expose the flesh, it's just like a steak you bring home from the supermarket. You wouldn't rinse a steak under the tap. You don't want to rinse your fish fillet under the tap. This is still sealed off by the stomach cavity from the flesh, so you can go ahead and rinse it without any problems. And what we want to do is make sure we got all the sand, any guts, anything like that removed from the flathead before we start cutting into the flesh. Give it a good hose top and bottom. Whenever you run your hand down a fish, always run it head to tail. If you run it the other way, you'll lift the spines and you'll put the spines into your hand. Another thing you need to be wary with flathead is they've got a very nasty spine on the side of the head, as many an angler will tell you. These two spines here will cause you a lot of damage if they wriggle into your hand. It's much more dangerous when the fish is alive and they're thrashing around, but you still need to be a bit careful of them now. Anyhow, we washed the slime off and the sand. We've removed any residual guts from the fish, so we're ready to start cutting into it. Now, flathead are a little bit different anatomy from most other fish. They lie on the bottom. They're an ambush predator. They wait for their prey to come along, and then they leap up, grab it, swallow it whole. Alrighty, so first off, so we've got two fins, pectoral fins, on the side of the fish. Okay, now this fin, if you can feel that there's a bone that runs under here that holds the fin in place, and then this fin here. So what I like to do is to make a cut in here under this fin, and then cut the flesh along the bony part of the fin. Just remove this away. This has got a little bit of injury from where I speared it. Normally you wouldn't have that, and if you're line fishing you certainly wouldn't have it. So there you just run the nice sharp knife in under this fin. There we go. We get to the other fin. Now this one, you make a cut like this. Cut all the way. I'm going to cut all the way through to the spine. Cooperates with me. There we go. So we cut that. Now we've cut that right through to the spine, just about. Finish that off. Alright, don't try to cut through the spine at this stage, we'll just leave that intact. Alrighty, so this is the dorsal fin of the fish. We want to cut down each side of the dorsal fin to take the fillets off. So a way to do it, to get through that hard skin, get my nice sharp knife and just go like that. There we go, the first cut into the fish. Alright, so that just helps us start the process off. It's not exactly, you can start anywhere along here. Try to cut parallel to the dorsal fin as closely as you can, so that you maximise the amount of meat that you're going to remove from this fish. Keep cutting all the way down. Take the scales off as we go. Alright, now we're getting down near the tail. Keep cutting. And what I like to do is just gradually make this deeper and deeper. You can feel these bones. You can see the spine. If I tilt it, you can see the spine just here. you want to keep an eye on that to make sure that you're maximising the amount of fish that you remove. No point leaving it on the bones. You want to be able to eat all the stuff. Alright, I'll take this a bit further up. So we cut right through the back of the head. You'll notice I'm using a nice stout knife. You say, James, why aren't you using a filleting knife? Well, filleting knife's very flexible and it does have its applications, but me, I like a nice robust knife that doesn't bend. Good, very important to have it very sharp. Keep working those scales off. All right, so from here back, we don't have any support bones out from the side of the spine holding the fillet in place. From here up, we have the rib cage, and we're gonna have to cut through that rib cage to remove the fillet. We'll keep working away at it. When I get down towards the end of the tail, I get my knife horizontal and I watch carefully, hopefully. And I'll put it through next to the underneath part. All right, now we're just finished taking that fillet off to the tail. Hopefully we haven't left too much on. All right, just working that down. Now we're going to cut through the rib bones. You hear a little crunch as we go through the rib bones. A big flathead like this, they're quite tough. Hence your sharp knife. Alright. Once we've got the rib bones cut through, we can cut up the fish. There's one that we haven't cut through. Let's work it back like that. Another one that we haven't cut through. Alright, finally managed to cut through all those rib bones, and here's what we're left with. A beautiful flathead fillet, still with some bones in it, which we're going to take care of now. So we'll put this bit aside. Alrighty. Every now and then you'll find another bone. That one's going to come out a little bit later. Alright, don't worry about that. Keep it up against the bones to this last one, right down to the skin. You'll find that they curve out a little bit here, so just keep following the line of the bones down. It won't be a dead straight cut because, like I said, the bones come out a little bit where they join the skin. Now you can see the colour of the meat. When you see this line here, that means you're getting very close to the skin, so we don't want to go through the skin. You want to keep the skin on. You notice I didn't scale this flathead either. We leave the scales on because that's all going to come off with the skin. Alright, so these two bones are sticking a bit further out than these ones down here and these ones up here. So just keep following it around until we're... And here we've got the skin exposed, the underneath side of the skin. Keep working away. We've got all that skin showing. Alright, now you could, if you wanted to, just cut down here and take this fillet straight off, but we'll take the rest of the pin bones out before we do that. So now we've got one side of bones, so we've got it, basically we're going to try and do exactly the same work into the bones like that. Now the bones, as long as I don't go too hard, are going to protect my hand from the knife. So be careful. Always take it nice and slowly. There's no hurry when you're doing this, so that you don't cut yourself. Alright, now the closer to the bones that you can get, the more meat you will get to eat. can never get 100% of the meat off. You'll always have just a little bit left over. But these bones won't go to waste. They'll be going back into my compost system. And the frame, the main frame of the flathead, will be going into crab traps to turn into beautiful mud crabs. You can, of course, if you want, if you'd like to make a fish stock, you can use these bones to make stock. They make an excellent stock. Flathead's a very light flavoured fish, so you get a fish stock that's not fishy. I like to remove all the bones from my fish because I like to be able to eat it without having to worry about choking on bones, and serve it up to guests without them choking on bones and ruining the whole experience of fish. I think that's one of the things that have put people off fish over the years, is that they've had bones, or they're worried about bones, and it spoils their enjoyment of it. If you can eat it like any other piece of meat without having to worry about bones, much more enjoyable. So here we are, we're getting to the skin on this side. So basically what we've got is a row of pin bones, and we haven't wasted very much meat at all. Alrighty, now we're getting down to the business end of removing some fish. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I've got these little cryovac bags. I like to cryovac these boneless, skinless fillets in nice meal-sized portions. So what we're going to do is to look to get pieces of meat from this flathead that will go nicely into a cryovac bag. You can see I've got what the fish is, the flathead, March 21, so that we know what we're eating and how old it is, so that you can eat the oldest fish first. Alright, so run the knife parallel to the skin. You'll find with flathead that you can almost pull the skin straight off them, but not quite, especially up this top end of the fish. So it's good to just be nice and gently, just run the knife under there till we get to about here. And when we're getting close to the edge of that fillet, you can slip your fingers in between the skin and the flesh and gently pull that fish away. We get down to where we've cut it across. We should have a nice boneless piece of flathead. Be very careful when you're cutting along here. It's very easy to go through the skin, and we don't want to do that because then we'll end up with skin on the fish. Just about there. You can hear it like sandpaper coming away from the fish. I'm being careful because I don't want to rip the end of this fillet off before we get to the cut that we made. Alright, now I've gone a little bit past where I've cut it, and that's important, you'll see in a second, because we're going to pull the whole rest of this fillet off at the end with the skin attached. But right now, you can just finish that cut right through, and there we have boneless, skinless, beautiful piece of flathead ready to cook. This top section, as long as you've removed all the pin bones, has guaranteed no bones in it. As this tail section back, guaranteed no bones. This section here has a couple of other funny bones that we're going to have to find out. If you're a little bit worried at all that you haven't done a good job of it, give the kids this end or this top loin of the flathead, and you won't have any problems in terms of bones. Alright, so we bag up this piece of meat into our cryovac bag. Right, now we can get to work on the belly side. Again, just run the knife underneath it nice and gently. So we're nearly there. Okay. You can see a little bit of the white inside of the skin sticking to the fish. Don't worry about that. That's perfectly fine to eat. That will not take away from your enjoyment at all. We're making another little cut across here. And you've noticed we've left ourselves a little handle so that we can tackle the rest of this fish. Alright, off she comes from the rest of the skin. And there we go. Alright, so this bit has got a couple of bones still in it. And the way we find them, turn it over the right way, oh, there we go, Here you can see these two bones sticking out that we want to remove. So, depending on how squeamish you are, there's a couple of different ways to remove them. You can gently cut down with a knife until you've got most of the bone. Be careful not to cut yourself. Alright, when you've got a large amount of the bone exposed, so you've got a good solid bit, you can pull it a bit with your fingers. Take that bit of flesh off so it'll stay there, and here's that bone. Now you can see on this size flathead it's quite a robust bone. If you use the old caveman technique, you can pull that bone out with your teeth, just like a little bit of sashimi flathead while you're doing it. Don't let your guests see this if they're going to eat it. Alright, so out goes this bone. Now we'll get the second bone out. This one's not usually as robust as the first bone, not as big. It's important to get these bones out. These are the ones that are very easily overlooked, and they're big enough to cause someone a problem if they get them stuck in their throat. So we want to get rid of this bone. Okay, so I'll show you how the non-caveman way of doing it. Just work your fingers down into the flesh, get hold of that bone, pull it out like that. There you have it, the other bone gone. So here we have beautiful boneless chunk. Have a look, we've just got a tiny bit of blood material there. We'll just flick that away, gone. Right, another magnificent super tender piece of flathead. Into the bag we go. In fact, I'll put that in a separate cryovac bag. And in we go. Alright, my wife and myself, one of these pieces like this is enough to make beautiful beer battered fish. This is my favourite way of eating flathead. Also magnificent fish to steam. They don't have much fat in them, so they're not like an oily fish where you might barbecue it or something like that. If you barbecue fish like flathead, you can do it, but you'll find that it'll really want to dry out and it doesn't really do the fish justice. It's really best to use different techniques for different types of fish. So these sorts of bottom fish, they don't have much red meat, they don't have much oil, not much omega-3 oils in them, other fish oil. Alright, let's get back to the job at hand. So what we're going to try and do is pull this whole bottom bit of the fillet away from the skin without too much more cutting. So I'll get the knife in just a little bit more. Be very careful here or you'll cut through the skin and then I can start swearing. Oh, do that. Alright, get a good grip on it. So a good grip on the skin, a good grip on the meat. As we pull away, you're going to see all the scales come flying off this skin. And there we have it. So what are we left with? Bones, skin, not any waste on that. Flick any scales off your hand. And there we have a magnificent flathead tail. You can give this to your kids, your guests, and be guaranteed that they won't have any bones. So just to get this in the bag, I'm going to cut this in half. Look at that magnificent pearly white meat on the flathead. So good, very mild. For people that are not big fish eaters, a little bit concerned about the taste of fish, they don't like fishy fish, well, flathead is the absolutely ideal fish for them. Like I told you, one more trick in the flathead. There are two, especially on a good sized one like this, there's two beautiful pieces of meat that we haven't taken off this fish yet, and that is these lovely big cheeks in here. These are a delicacy, like an oyster of the flathead. This is the other one here, just next to those very, very dangerous spines. So to get this out, you've got your rock hard flathead head, and here, very soft skin. So what we're trying to find is the boundary, and it's actually right on the colour change is the boundary. So we get our knife and we go in like that and run it along the very hard bit of the flathead. Get right up in against that bone of the flathead's head and get right in there. Work away. So there's like a triangle, there's another bone here. So in we go here. Up here, watch your fingers, don't cut them off. And you're going to start to see that one come out. And again, just a bit like here. Beautiful. Little oyster of the Flathead. Don't throw that away, that's an absolutely delicious fish cocktail. Now this little bit of skin, it doesn't have any scales on it, so you can leave the skin on it. I'll tuck that away into one of our smaller bags, like this one. And go ahead and grab the little cheek muscle from the other side. In we go again. A little bit tricky getting them out, but it's definitely worth the effort because they taste superb. We've got to do the fish justice and honour it by eating every possible part of it, using every bit of it, waste nothing. Like I said, with this fish, we're going to use this frame. The head I'm going to keep for my wall of death. The frame I'm going to use to catch mud crabs with. The rest of the scrappy bits of fish, this is going to go to the dogs as a treat because it's got a little bit of sand on it. We don't want to have crunchy sandy fish. And the skin and the little bits of bone that are really not useful for crab bait, we're going to put into the compost in the garden and we're going to help it grow our veggies with it. Fish is very, very good for growing vegetables. When I get a lot of Spanish mackerel, I've got too many frames to use for crab bait and I'm out of freezer space, I'll bury those frames in the garden beds down to about 25 to 30 centimeters under the bed, far enough for animals not to dig them up and for the smell not to get too bad, and then you can plant your crops straight on top of those fish frames and they'll break down over time and provide a wonderful amount of nutrients, like the Indians in North America used to do, plant a salmon under their corn to make their corn grow. The same we can use our fish frames to make our vegetables grow.